Hey, welcome everyone. Let's see here. Trying to put a couple of fires out, but we are here tonight. How's everybody doing? Let me lock in and see who do we have here. I'm gonna start out by doing roll call. Let's see who we got in here. I see Miss Alice Albritton in the building. Kelly Ann in the building. How's everybody doing? Make sure y'all let me know y'all can hear me clearly. It's your boy Low, man. We live tonight. I'm gonna tell y'all what Pastor is shortly, but I am filling in. Let's see who else is in here. I see Marcia in the chat. Miss Olivia, how you doing, my girl? Good to see you. Joseph, thank you for joining and tuning in. It's a lot of y'all in here already. Yeah, I see y'all in here fellowship and speaking. Miss Carolyn Hathorn in the building. How y'all doing? Miss Regina, my girl. How you doing? Shirley Brown in the building. LB in the building. I see a lot of y'all. The Cheryl Walls, Tougaloo alumni in the building. I see Dr. Shanita in the building. How's everybody doing? Mob man Rick. What's up, Rick? How y'all feeling tonight? Good. Thank you for letting me know I sound clear and loud, Rick. Thank you for that. It's good to see y'all. Miss Donna's in the building, man. Shout out to Winter. I see you, Sylvia, everybody in the building. Listen, I'm gonna get into this because y'all know we don't waste time. Pastor is currently, he was invited to be at the vigil for Nolan Wells. If you don't know, we've talked about this before. Nolan is from our community, and Pastor is being what he does when there's things that go on within the culture and the community that he can support and help. He is on the ground, being there to support the Wells family, that mother and that father, and everybody else that he can in his capacity. Miss Lois is in the building. Hey, Miss Lois, I miss you so much. Tuning all in from Las Vegas, Nevada. Yes, I love that. So tonight I'm gonna get into it. I am your host for this evening, and y'all know how I do. I never come alone, and I have a couple of guests with me. We're going to get into it. We want to start out. Let me say this. We're going to start out by saying that we as a community here in Ocean Springs are sending our love and prayers to the Wells family. We also stand with them as they celebrate what would be Nolan's 19th birthday. I have a 17-year-old son who just turned 17. And one of the things that I love about being a parent is being able to celebrate his life and the things, these milestones. So I cannot imagine what it feels like for that mother and father to not be able to hold their young son on his 19th birthday. And that is why Pastor is there to lend aid and support about that. But tonight, listen, we are a ministry of doers. We are a community of doers. We do not just simply believe in standing on the sidelines and not having action to our prayers and our hopes. So one of the things we want to do is talk about some of the things that are still surrounding this moment. A lot of times they want us to just move on past what is happening and affecting our communities. And we are not going to do that. We're not just going to sweep this under the rug. And I have some great people that I'm going to talk with tonight. One of the things that I when Pastor asked me this, I spoke with Caden earlier today when he came home from school. And I asked him, I said, man, I was thinking it would be such a trying day for a lot of them at school, you know, with it being in our community, Nolan being a graduate of Ocean Springs. And I asked Caden, I said, Caden, what was it like at school today? Like, son, come here. You know, I hug and kiss him every day. And after we embraced, he spoke to me. He said, Dad, honestly, it was just another day. He said, we went to school. Some of Nolan's friends posted on social, but outside of that, there was no conversation. There was no inner mingling of about his passing, like nothing surrounding him. And I thought that was unique. I thought that was something that I didn't expect. And in that moment, it made me consider the fact that while we were talking, that my child is a result of the pandemic. Caden was, I think, 11, 12 during the pandemic. And having that experience has somewhat altered our generations that are coming behind us. And so we're going to make sure we have a conversation about what we can do to identify these things, but also solutions to improve, just making sure that we are equipping our children going forward where they're not desensitized to things that affect them culturally. All right, now I'm already 6 minutes into my time. Let me start by introducing someone. Some of you remember my guest from he's a repeat guest, but I want to introduce CJ, who has spent over 15 years using law, media, and advocacy to address systemic issues and amplifying Black voices. He is also the creator of the time-recognized viral hashtag, If They Gunned Me Down, and has appeared as a commentator on CNN, BBC, NBC, and countless other major networks. I want you guys to help me welcome to the stage CJ Lawrence. Hey, CJ, how you doing?
I'm good, Lo, man. Thank you for having me again, bro. How are you this evening?
Hey, I cannot complain. I thank you for giving us your time again. The last time you were on, we were discussing the initial reaction to Nolan, and I'm glad that you're able to come back this week to have a follow-up conversation, but in a different manner. We also have another guest, but right now it seems like we are trying to sort through some of there she is. Okay, we are back. I want to do this the right way because our other guest tonight is Wakenya J.S. Clanton. She is a strategist, coalition builder, and the inaugural Mississippi State Director for the Southern Poverty Law Center. She is a Tougaloo College graduate in Canton, Mississippi. You don't meet a lot of people from Canton on the coast, but she is from Canton, Tougaloo, Mississippi. Some of y'all know the Canton Spirituals. But she has dedicated more than a decade of her life to public service, advocacy, and community engagement with a focus on equity, justice, fairness, and safety. Her leadership experience includes serving as senior advisor to the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, executive director of the National Organization of Black Elected Legislative Women, and a congressional aide to Congressman Benny G. Thompson. Please welcome to the stage our other guest, Miss Wakenya Clanton. How are you, Wakenya?
Hey, Love. Hey, CJ. Thank y'all for having
me.
Listen, I'm so grateful to have you guys here. Powerhouse between the two of you. And I want to get right into this. CJ, if you can, in a fashion, answer this question. And Wakenya, if you want to chime in on this, you can as well. When we look at the young people in Nolan's age range, I talked about my son and his response. What do you believe the pandemic had as an effect on them that we as adults may be overlooking? Because I was unaware about the reaction that my son would have.
Well, Lo, I think that's a really good question. The thing that I'll say about this generation, whether it's Generation Z, whether it's Gen Z or Gen Alpha is that they have grown up completely in the era of social media. Some of them are younger than Facebook and Twitter and some of the other platforms. In
Mhm.
reality, I know that many of them, it being 2026, or were born after 2006, which is when I got my Facebook uh, platform or profile. And so I recall that vividly. And I say that to say that when you couple that along with the pandemic and the fact that they had to be able to interact digitally, you have a generation of young people who are more socially engaged with one another through digital means, but who perhaps are also less socially engaged with one another as a result of things like the pandemic and result of things like um, just the fact that they interact more with technology than they do in a way that people have traditionally interacted on a personal level. Uh, you couple that with the impact of the pandemic and the impact of what we saw with George Floyd also during 2020, Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, as well as others in the uprising that occurred. And it kind of like makes a perfect storm for how kids can be both invested in, but also quickly moving on from an issue that has captured us in a national way to other things. I think that, along with how they just perhaps are trying to navigate trauma in and of itself, kind of speaks to a lot of maybe what they're witnessing and experiencing right now. Um, that's the way that I would speak to it, though.
But Kenya,
Yeah, Lo, I really appreciate the question. Because it's such a important one. Like when we think about not just what the children are experiencing, but what we are experiencing in the same moment, right? Like to you raised the point about like them coming of age in the pandemic where they experienced tremendous loss through a screen, right? You couldn't go to a funeral in public. You couldn't see and feel the emotions of a place and garner the connection to a person's story and understand the life that they lived, where you could then feel some deeper form of remorse and empathy, right? You felt bad because you knew you were supposed to feel bad, but you couldn't connect to the sadness. I think in this moment, I don't want to like over speak for them or burden them with this feeling that they lack emotion, but I really want to challenge those around us now. We've been at the pandemic for a little bit over 5 years now, right? So there's much that's happened since that time. I think where we as adults have become comfortable is not allowing them or not encouraging them to tap into those feelings and those emotions in a raw way, like not in a way where it's like, oh, we'll say it's okay to feel, but do we talk them through those feelings? Like, do we talk them through those emotions in a way that allows them to be able to say that you don't just grieve at a loss, but you also grieve to remember, right? I think what your son experienced was a failure on behalf of the school and the larger community to really create a space of healing and understanding, right? Like we are all Mississippians on this call, but we're all from different parts of the state. CJ from the Pine Belt, you from the coast, I'm from Central Mississippi. And our experiences with this place is varied and unique, but also very similar in a lot of ways. And as people, young people here who live at the intersection of race and humanity, right? In a place like Mississippi, I think that there is something there. I don't think that the children didn't want to grieve. I don't think they knew that they could. I don't know that they knew that it's okay to remember him. It's okay to acknowledge how you feel in that moment. It's okay for you to live in compassion, right? And empathize with a story that you might have known him in passing, but
mm,
to come across him, it could have been you, it could have been the reverse. And so to help them remember and recall and reflect on how they would want to be remembered, I think is really important to tap into those feelings, to let them know what is okay. Like we remember moments of silence at school, right? We remember or in community. We remember prayer visuals, and we remember t-shirts and balloon releases and all of those things. This generation didn't have that, right? Like,
Right.
I think about when we lost one of my classmates due to an illness when we had just graduated. We got together. We understood the power of being together and being in community and remembering him, his story, his song, like paying tribute to his life in a real meaningful way. I think that's incumbent on us. I think it's on us to give them space to know that that's okay, and they don't have to do it on social media. It doesn't have to be a post. Like they are so conditioned to posting that
Yeah,
they don't connect, and so and that's not their fault. That's our fault.
that's a good point.
I like
That's a
that.
really
It
point.
so do you think, because I love that you talked about empathy,
Mhm.
and it makes me wonder, is it more so now that they become just desensitized, or is it just their coping mechanisms might not be the expressions that we expect?
But is it they that have become desensitized, or is it us that have become desensitized?
Talk about it.
Right? Because they don't know to feel sensitive. They don't know the sensory, right? Because they haven't had that encounter. We have. So you can't become desensitized to something that you were never sensitized to begin with,
Mm,
right? Their experience with life and death is very different,
Yes.
right? And how they are taught, even in school or through counseling or whatever, how to talk about their feelings it's it's almost surface level, right? It is
Hmm.
to express it, it's to get it out, but it's not to deal with it. Like,
Hmm.
it's not to deal with the feeling. It's not to deal with what you're holding. It's not to, like, you can be angry and like know what that looks like and feels like for you, right? It doesn't have to be a ball of emotion where you punch a wall. It could be tears, it could be hurt, it could be your chest. I mean, it could be all of these things. We've not exposed them to those, the variety of emotion, right? The array of emotion that I think is warranted in this point. Like, remember, they learned to grieve on screen. How
Yeah,
many funerals did you go to in COVID on a screen?
man.
Right? You couldn't even bury people for a while because they didn't know how the virus was being spread. So it was like so many things, and these are they're in their development years, so they're learning emotion and feelings and processes. Then, right? So they might see somebody in their house cry in another room. They might hear a tear fall or see one fall, but they don't know the well. Like, they don't, it's people, especially in our community, we grieve in such connective ways, like very passionate ways. Many of us do. We don't all grieve the same. I want to say that. But there is something about being in a space and you get to tap into the emotions of others around you. That period of isolation took much more from our children and from us, honestly, than we probably even realized. We're still exploring what that looks like for them. But I
Yeah,
also don't want to diminish the way that they do show empathy and the way that they do show emotion. I think, though, there is space for introduction to
yeah,
something that lets them know and understand that the interpersonal side of connection is still very, very relevant, and that you don't have to hold things on your own. And even though you post something in solidarity, it doesn't mean you sit in that same solidarity, right? That's more representative than it is connective. And I think being in a position where we can talk to them about that a little bit more and create some exposure, but also some opportunity for them to then express once they have the knowledge to tap into how they may be feeling. But again, I don't want to diminish how they
yeah.
may be showing up, but I do want to acknowledge that we may not have introduced them to enough of variety when it comes to showing emotion.
I think that's a good point. Yep.
So, so let me ask this, because there are going to be people who say, you know counselors, therapy, parents need to lock in, and I've been doing that with our children. Like,
Mhm.
just overall, I think, to CJ's point, this newer generation, I've had to evolve as what I was defining a parent to be, right? My
Mhm.
parents were able to be to me is not the version of parenting that I know my kids need in today's time.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me wonder, and I'm leading to a question, because within 30 seconds on social media, and with Kenya, you said something that was profound, is that they've learned through a screen. So scrolling now, you can see somebody pass away. The next post is a joke. The post after that could be a community activation
Mm-hmm.
or like something that affects your
Mm-hmm.
well-being and livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could go like it in a matter of, it's like
Mm-hmm.
popcorn emotion.
Yeah. What doesn't it give you space to feel anything? It
Yeah.
just informs you. It doesn't give you space for emotional intelligence. And so I think what we're talking about here is just like encountering it, but not dealing with it, right? Like when you talk about grief and when you talk about um reflection, you have to give pause to some of that. But if your mind is flipping the switch, that's why the conversation is important. That's why going to the wake is important, having the visual is important, creating the healing circle is important, because the conversation happens there. There's not a conversation happening on a post with a caption. It's not, right? You may see comments, but that's still not conversation. Those are remarks. And so being able to understand, being able to
Yeah.
understand what dialogue is, right? Like meaningful, structured dialogue for you to hear and for others to hear you too, is just a different thing. And I don't think that we've done our job in reinstituting that as a priority in learning and development.
Now I'm going somewhere, and y'all know how I am. I love building bridges, and I say that the question is leading to the situation we're in right now. So we still have no real viable updates about Nolan's
Mhm.
his passing. We have a lot of bickering online and things of that nature, and it makes me wonder how this will affect our our political and justice views going forward. Because I think what makes us passionate and active in these regards are our abilities to feel when these things happen.
Mhm.
Mhm.
If we now have a generation that has become numb, so to speak, or inexpressive,
Mhm.
and remark first, uh how do we survive? How do we, because Kenya, I asked you this before when we were backstage. I was curious about what children of the civil rights movement, how they were affected.
Mhm.
But I think you've already answered some of that with, they were given the rights to feel. They attended the Emmett Till funerals. They were able to see the bodies and the ramifications of what their moms and dads and grandparents were fighting for. And in y'all's experience, how do we as a culture and community protect that fight for freedom and rights in a time where now, my children will take care of me one day?
Mhm.
I'm concerned as if, you know, will there be someone on the wall fighting and feeling
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
as an elder?
I, I I'll start with this one. Kenya. I think that's a good question, and something that's good to perceive. I do think that young people do care. I think they express it differently than
Mhm.
we do. Um, because we're from a generation where we had both from the we came from the dial-up telephone generation, and it went from dial-up telephone to internet. We were that first generation that experienced both sides of that. But when you look at what they've experienced, as what Kenya stated about what they've witnessed as far as how they dealt with funerals, they've also witnessed our lives being taken. They've literally witnessed
Mhm.
lynchings take place on social media, and
Mhm.
then have to get back to everyday living. Like I said, in 2020, they witnessed what happened to George Floyd, and then had to grapple with that in ways that a lot of us didn't have to repeatedly be exposed to or encounter. And so I think that they, in a lot of ways, they are activated. We see Gen Z
Mhm.
right now, and Generation Alpha. They're activated. They express themselves differently than we do and than we did. But I think that they care very much about social justice and the future. So much so that I think that what you've seen, particularly with conservative leadership, is the attempt to try to radicalize uh, to a great degree many of them to lean more conservatively. That, I think that leans into the purchasing of a TikTok or the purchasing of
Mhm.
many of these media platforms, because that's the way that they want to be able to get to young people who are beginning to have awakenings and speak out on issues on their own, and show a fight that was counterintuitive to the direction perhaps that they wanted the world to go. And so I think we got a lot of fighters. I think it's imperative upon us. I think about our elders and some of the things that we're doing right now as we traveling around the state, talking to a lot of elders and people who have experienced things, particularly with voting rights and civil rights. And why Kenya can speak to that as well. Some of the things we are witnessing is these are the places that we need our young people in too. We got to get them there. And if we can't get them there, then we got to bring it to them
Mhm.
so that they can be able to access it. Because those are the recipes that we got to be able to hold on to when our elders transcend. Those are the things that we got to be able to convey to them, is those stories. I had the privilege of being able to be exposed to a Hollis Watkins.
Mhm.
The privilege to be able to be exposed to many of the freedom riders because of just having attended Tougaloo College, and that being part
Mhm.
of the challenge that they issue to us. That's the charge that you get the moment you step foot on that campus. And so that was cultivated and curated in us. And I think that that's something that Tougaloo, at the very least, still holds on to. Even while Kenya is developing and has programs that is directly dedicated to activating young people in the way that you are expressed and concerned about, and teaching them. She invited me a few weeks ago to talk
Mhm.
about how we use advocacy and
Mhm.
social media to do what we do as Black with No Chaser. And I think they were captivated by that so much so that they wanted to continue the conversation and reached out. So I think it's just finding a way to engage them on the things that we know they're already interested in, and marrying that to what we know they need in addition to that in order to be able to advance that cause. So,
Mhm. Um, that's so right, CJ. This question of this generation takes me back to something that Bell Hooks said. She said, "My rage intensifies because I am not a victim. It burns in my psyche with an intensity that creates clarity. It is a constructive healing rage. It is a way for us to learn to see clearly." I I went to that particular quote because I was thinking about the comparison between this generation and ours, right? I see this generation as one of deep morality, but also deep privilege. Their motivation is justice, right? It is strictly what is right and what is wrong. With us, it's about emotion. It is about what we were taught to do in order to achieve a thing. And when it is denied to us, that incites rage in us. Their rage is for more clarity. It is about everything is equal. Remember, they're also an Obama generation. They were born when Obama was president. Their president has been Obama and Trump. Okay?
woo,
Right?
shoot,
So they are a generation that knew hope and change, and they didn't grow up in divisiveness. We did. We grew up in a place that is separated by railroad tracks. We grew up in those places. We grew up in a place where if you have a nice car, you better not drive it to your job, right? Like your mama now better not drive to the job because she come home next week, she ain't got no job, right?
Mhm.
We grew up in that generation. We did not raise that generation. We
Mhm.
raised a generation that would not know those challenges. They would not, because we believed, right? We
Yeah.
believed in the dream. We believed in a more perfect reunion. They came along for a time where that all started to dissipate. You
Yeah.
had someone who was elected to the highest office in the land basically debunked the American experiment, right? So this idea of freedom and justice and equality, that's is what they do. It's being challenged, and they see that as a moral. They see it as a moral compromise as
Mhm.
to who they believe that they are as Americans, as people.
Oh man. Hey, listen.
Right.
You said something with that, why Kenya? Like what you got me thinking about the fact that even the way that they're being taught right now is
Huh,
different. The
it's
way that they're being
different.
taught, they're not being taught the history that we know to be the truth, right? And so in that regard, it's like we have to protect them from the history as they're being taught
No,
it right now.
we
You
have
know,
to expose them to the
well,
history.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Expose them and protect
yeah,
them from the misinformation and the
that's right.
miseducation that is taking
Or
place.
the whitewashing of
Right.
history, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really important. It's really important that we emphasize that because even when I heard you talking to a younger person earlier tonight, Lo, uh, I heard the strain that it was for him to speak about race itself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he couldn't.
Yeah.
It was hard for him to say black and white. He
Yeah.
he he kind of leaned in with the people of color, and and he spoke about it as with as much conviction as he could, but also I was hearing in him being trying to speak to it what perhaps the way the way he's experienced is conditioning him to have to speak to it too.
It's a lack of pride in being black. It's and that's how they're being taught. They're being taught to not say black. Black is a bad word for them. For us, black is the most important word you could ever learn
It's
in the.
beautiful.
It's beautiful, right? It's a sense of pride and power that goes back to who responsibility is it, right? Like so, I read Bell Hooks, but there was other quote by Claudia Rankin who said, "If abandoned rage acts, who should answer for this? Say the very blood of our lives eats composure up." Right? That is a parenting situation. Like I was raised in a household, you were black and you was black and you was black to black and you was black some more and some more black on it. Okay. And put some more black on top of that. Right? My mama always said I was the blackest child she ever had, and I was not her darkest child. Okay. But that is because the foundation of pride and at that and honestly, and I might get in trouble for this, but I take issue with the term people of color. Every person has an ethnicity. Call them by what they are. Call me by my name,
Yeah.
right? Like Dr. Williams Woods at Tougaloo College said, what shall I be called?
Hmm.
Right? It's an origin story. And when you choose to lump people together, you erase their identity, you erase their struggle, their story, their power. That is important. And so and CJ, it's so interesting that you picked up on it because I picked up on that too. It's like he is struggling. He thinks that saying black is a bad thing, and he's talking to black people. He's talking to his
Hmm.
uncle. That's a
Hmm.
problem. And that's something we did. We did that. A teacher didn't do that. A school system didn't do that. We did that. Because the first parent, the first teacher is the parent. It's in the home. It's the family. And if you don't give your children a strong foundation, if you don't teach them about the realities of this world, you are setting them up for failure. No child should be ashamed of who they are, whether that is race, creed, color, sexual orientation, whatever it is. No person should feel shame in that. What you should feel is power and empowerment because you can own who you are. You can own your story. You can and you can feel okay saying no to things that you know that don't align with you. You can
Yeah.
say feel okay saying no to things that you feel within you. So it goes back to that feeling, like that gut, understanding what you're encountering, right?
What
I
they say?
I keep going back to Nolan, right?
Yeah.
And I keep thinking about Emmett Till, right? I
Oh yeah.
keep thinking about Mamie Till, and I keep thinking about Nolan's mama, Christina. Like, there's no way, right?
Yeah.
You can tell me that that woman thought that she would be having to have that type of conversation with her child about, like,
Right.
these are the signs. Like, and just being honest, I'm gonna be 100% honest. My parents had certain conversations with me,
Yeah.
right? Like
Oh yeah.
your friend, you gotta be careful who you call your friend. Like you really need to know, because there's certain things that your friend gonna do. Your friend not gonna leave you nowhere by yourself. If you got a friend
Mhm.
that leave you somewhere, that's not your friend,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They walk off and leave you in the club, that's not your friend.
Mhm.
They don't come back and get in the car, y'all don't leave together. You can't together, but you don't leave together. That is not your friend. Like knowing certain things, but again, we live in a society where we thought we were done having to explain those things to our children because of what we worked to give them a life without certain struggle, without certain
Yeah.
realities, and that's not any parent would want that for their child. That's not a
Man.
fault. That's not a blame thing, but
So
it is a reality.
let me ask y'all this, because I'm a PK. I grew up
Same.
in
Yeah.
church. And I will say that I do believe that the church of today is different than the church of my youth.
Yeah.
I think, and I often wonder within myself, have I allowed myself to become complicit in the absence of blackness within our cultural worship, right? When I say that, it's like I remember when it became like the mega church became a thing. Then it was like we were all inclusive, which is fine, which is great. But it always seems like we diminish our culture for the inclusion of
Hey,
everybody.
now that's hey. Listen, you said something. Keep going.
But because I'm listening to y'all and I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, where did I learn these things? Where was the pride of being black
Well,
in my
with
life
that
stemming
that
from?
code switching and things like that have often we have often suppressed our blackness to accommodate and make comfortable whiteness and others. To be quite honest with you, we at the when President Obama got elected, and you saw that beautiful black family standing on that stage that night. Um, they began to talk about post-racial America and how
Hmm.
how America had finally realized the dream, as Joaquin said. But we know that that wasn't true, because the very same night that the Obamas got elected, there were men who literally went to work writing on napkins to ensure that nothing like that ever happened again. So much so that we are witnessing the results of that right now with the current state of what we are living in, all the way down to the way the education system is working, to the way that the political system is working. And so we have to be honest about those things. And we have to be honest about even what you're saying with regard to the impact that it's had on the church and across the board. Because when we do go into or have others come into our spaces, we've often suppressed ourselves. We've often talked differently. We've often code switched in order to make sure that it was okay for those who we allowed to be guests in our spaces. And I think that it's important, in fact critical, that we understand, and that's what really Black Without Chase is about, was about the idea that it's okay for us to be unapologetically who we are, even in the presence of others, uh, because if it were to make them uncomfortable, then maybe perhaps for a moment they would get a brief glimpse into what it is to be Black every day of
Hmm.
our lives in the United States of America. And that it's not our intention to make you uncomfortable by being our extra Black selves.
Absolutely.
But it's something that if you get acclimated to it, you will eventually adjust. If you understand our being Black and unapologetic in these spaces is not intended to hurt you. It's intended to ensure that we know ourselves, are true to ourselves, and are empowered within
Now,
ourselves.
now let me
But why
expound
does
too.
black
Let
what
me,
why does black have to make people uncomfortable,
but
right?
see,
Like
that's what I was going to say.
yeah.
Being someone, because I went to school in Ocean Springs, we
Hmm.
worshiped in Biloxi on Division Street and that railroad track you talked about.
Hmm.
I have always coming into Biloxi on the weekends. I had I was picked on at first because I talk differently. It was like, why you talk like that? So then it was like I found myself learning to adjust when I was certain places,
Code
and
switch.
then when I went back. And I say this to say because even in saying what I just said, I realized someone could say, what if a white church said we have to suppress our whiteness because Lo is worshiping with us today? But I've learned that I've been in spaces where they don't have to worry about that.
America.
Because supremacy
America.
don't work that way.
I'm like,
Supremacy and
America.
superiority don't work that way. Like
I'm
those who
just being
believe that,
real.
listen, listen, friend. Okay? Listen very carefully. Supremacy and superiority do not work that way. Okay? Those who have it all, who the standard has been set around, don't believe that they have to change anything. They are the standard, meaning that everybody around them is trying to achieve their level. So they would never say that. They would never say, "Oh, let's try to, give me an 8 count for Low." Like they're not gonna ever do that. That is not how it works. But also because it's their space, right? They hold agency and they don't think that way. I don't think that that's intentional, but I think it is about choice, right? And so people can cry much sooner than they can change.
Mm. Oh,
Bow
listen.
Bowen said that too. I didn't say that. Bowen said that.
Uh-huh.
But it said, and the reason that I said that is because think about when you are challenging someone's privilege, right? Everything becomes an excuse. Everything becomes like, why are you attacking me? Why are you there? You're sooner to cry than to admit that maybe there is something here that I need to explore. Maybe there's something here that has created an imbalance that I need to adjust for the people around me so that I can create a space of inclusion if that's what I truly want. It's it, you know, one of the things that I am careful to do is to avoid us versus them conversation. It's easy to do. It's
Yes.
easy to do. I believe that it's easy to do because we have yet to deal with the issue of race, particularly in a place like Mississippi. We have yet to deal with what that means in terms of fear, what it means in terms of hope and hopelessness in a place like Mississippi. And it's not just Mississippi. Yes, we're talking about something egregious that has happened and things that continue to happen here. It gets a lot of play here versus when it happens in somewhere like New York or
Oh yeah.
Chicago, right?
Mhm.
It's not to say it's not happening in other parts of the world. It is just that this becomes the poster child of hate. It has always been that. And we play a role in that. Like I'm going on the thing is we play a role in that. But I do think that this gives us an opportunity to think about something much differently. It's not about them and what they're doing, it's about what we're doing and what we're willing to do to protect our own. We started talking about Black Panthers and Cubs of Black Panthers and like where they are now, what they're doing now, but they still embody the idea of protecting our own. Right. They still embody this idea of self actualization, of self determination, and they are putting that back in the community in various ways. Now, it might not be the same organization as they had before that was very successful in terms of creating self sustainability and self sufficiency for Black families, but it is in other ways. And I think there are tools and things to be learned from that. And I think for many of us, particularly those of us who work in the social justice space, that we are finding those opportunities and we're tapping into that because that's really important for us to do, particularly in moments like this when you have 600,000 Black women who've lost their jobs due to hate and bigotry, right? Not because of ineptitude, not
Right.
because they're not qualified, not because they were horrible at their jobs, but because they were Black and
Hmm.
female. That and for the longest time, single Black women have been producing scholars, not just athletes, right? They've been producing, you know, uh vice presidents and Supreme Court justices and all these other people,
Yeah.
right? Like a president of the United States. Like single mothers have been doing that. Now the president of the United States wasn't a single black woman, but she was a single mother. So she was doing these things to put into the world Black genius in a way that is undeniable and unrefutable. And I think for some people who want to hold and hoard power and who need certain narratives in order to feel strong and bold and all of these other things, they need the other side of that. And that resilience has allowed us the space to challenge and push back on those narratives. Like, the biggest welfare queens I know are corporations, right? They
Yeah.
are banks, they are
Big
data
banks.
centers, they're tech companies, right? Those are people who are draining our resources, both financially and environmental, to keep us at a place where we don't trust our food, we can't get enough water, we're having droughts and blackouts across the country because people want us contained. And they want us in a way where we're continuously vulnerable because we defied every other odd that they placed in our way. And I think that is something to be said about that. For sure. And I don't know that this is the context for this conversation, but I mean, there's just so many nuances here when we start talking about the things that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And race is at the center of that. But it's so much more. There's change at the center of it. There's accountability at the center of it, and there's hope and change at the center of that
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah. I would say that race is absolutely an issue that like if you look at the backlash that has occurred with diversity, equity, and inclusion,
mhm,
DEI, and the way that that has even been turned into a negative term. Uh, when it's said like a curse word now,
mhm,
and that's because that was an instance of us coming into spaces and saying, "Hey, you should make these spaces more accommodating," in ways
mhm,
that we were willing to make spaces accommodating without ever having the power dynamic that existed in order to be able to say that people should be uncomfortable in spaces with us. There's no reason to be uncomfortable in a black space as a white person. There's no history of us
mhm,
standing around the bodies of white men and women, the burned
mhm.
and uh
Charred and feathered.
right. There's
Mhm,
there's no history of that. There's no museum dedicated to that. But there are the in the alternative a history of that having happened to us in this country.
mhm,
There is a history
mhm,
of us having been shipped to this country. Understanding and
mhm,
appreciating those things, I have a deeper appreciation for why the church has to be revolutionary in its own right. Why the schools or why parents have to be revolutionary in how they engage and teach and educate their children, and even in our grief, because I will be honest, I grieve every time that I see Christine talking about Nolan, or when I see Elmore and Christine or their family. uh, I grieve for the Ocean Springs community when I see them trying to navigate this. I grieve for the young people, and I think that grief is that communal grief that we are experiencing is just a part of the village and tribe that is deep within us. I think we've held on to that. We pass on stories orally to this day, from grandma and aunties to the next generation. I learned about Emmett Till not from the school system. I learned about Emmett Till when my aunties and my mama was cooking gumbo around at the house when I was 6 and 7 years old on a Saturday. And that was what activated me. That was what helped me to understand that somebody that was a few years older than me at the time that it occurred to him was done the way, a few years older than me and a few years younger than Nolan, was done the way that he was in the state that we're from. And so it is incumbent upon us. It's critical that we understand that we play a role in this. And I know, that you know I'm thinking, like I say, I'm thinking about Nolan today on what would have been his 19th birthday, and reflecting on what it means to fight for Nolan's life, what it means to fight for all of our lives, to fight for our communities, for history and the future. And I think that you know it is something that cannot be done passively. Jill Scott Heron said The revolution will not be televised. Now you may see it online, but you won't be a part of it. And so to be activated and within it, you're gonna have to get out and be a part of it. And from our end, as people who are already connected to it, we can't. We got to bring it to the young people. We can't wait for them to come to it. We got to go get them
Mhm.
and help them along the way, but also listen to them about what they see and what they feel with regard to
I
how we
love
have.
that. That's a great pivot as we wrap tonight up. Man, such great dialogue. We really need to do this more. I'm serious because education is the weapon. The more we know, the more we can change things. Which leads me to I know you both are involved in the voting process and uh, activating our young voters. The young man we were talking to today just turned 18, which means he is able to now vote. Why can you, if you can, to parents that are,
Mhm.
have new voters?
Mhm.
Like, matter of fact, I was upset. My daughter was upset last year because she was in college during the voting time. They did not offer them voting at school. I thought that was strange. Yes, she attends the University of South Alabama, and I was trying to figure out, like,
Well, we should have got her an absentee ballot so she could have voted in this
so
Mississippi
I'm
race.
I'm I'm asking you to
Yeah.
educate us, because a lot of us do have college students
Yeah.
who would like to have their voices heard. What are some things we can do to ensure that all of our future and our young voters are actively involved? Because I do know Mississippi is actually a little closer than people give us credit for.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna give you the floor if you can.
Thank you, Lo. And I will be answering this question in my personal capacity. And the reason that I say that is because I want to be real clear. On November the 3rd, we have a real chance at writing history in Mississippi. We both have the opportunity to WRITE write it and RIGHT write it. And that's really important for us to say right now, especially with everything that's going on. Scott Cologne is on the ballot. He is running for Senate, United States Senate in Mississippi. And we need him more now than ever, to be honest with you. um, so much is on the ballot for Mississippi. When you talk about the impacts of the big beautiful bill, big ugly bill is how we like to refer to it, many of those cuts are going to effect on January 1, right? You need a senator that's in there that could help reverse some of those changes that are going to that are going to cause more than 100,000 Mississippians to lose their health care. We've already lost 400,000 have already lost their health care, but you stand for another 100,000 to also lose their health care once this bill goes into effect. You're talking about children going hungry. You're talking about housing subsidies going by the wayside. You're talking about students not being able to go to school and get the training and the tools and access to funding that they need. You're talking about so many other things. And you need someone who's in there who's going to hold the line. And so if for all the parents who are watching and grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and sisters and brothers that have young people who are turning 18 or people who are already 18 or older and they need to be registered to vote, do us this real big favor and register them to vote. Okay.
Yeah,
Like register them to vote, take them to their circuit clerk's office. You can go to the Secretary of State's website and download the voter registration form, fill it out, and send it back in. For folks who have not voted in the last two presidential elections, the state of Mississippi passed something this last session called the Shield Act, right? The Shield Act um actually, hold on, let me back it up. A couple of years ago, we passed a piece of legislation that automatically purged people who had not voted in the last two presidential elections. That was about 2024, I believe. 2024, we passed that bill. Okay. Last session, they passed the Shield Act, which is the documented proof of citizenship. That's our version of a SAVE Act, which will require you to, if you have been purged from the list or you're rendered inactive on the voting roll, you have to verify your citizenship, meaning the name that's on your Your birth
Birth
certificate has to match what's on your ID and also has to match what's on the voting roll. Let me tell you why that's important that you know that. People think that's about immigrants. No, it's not. It's about the elderly, who we have a lot of in Mississippi, many of which who were born by midwifery, who do not have a birth certificate and would have to go into request a birth certificate from the Vital Records Office. It's also going to affect um people who were born to single parents who may be carrying the name of the father on the birth certificate, but may have a different name on their ID because they live by their mom's last name, but they were born under their dad's last name. Okay, the reason that that's important for folks who don't know, if you were dating someone and you wanted to get assistance for them, for the child, right? You had to have the child has to be listed in the father's name, right? That may or may not match what is on that child's ID. They might have gone to school under your name. And so, which means when they go to show up to vote, their name will not match what is on their driver's license. Okay. Those are the types of things that we have to be prepared for in this cycle. We've had almost 100,000 or so people be purged from the voting rolls over the last several years. That means that you have to be vigilant in checking your voter registration status, which everybody should do, right? Everybody should do it every month leading up into the voter registration deadline. And you can do that by going to the Secretary of State's website as well. Go under y'all vote and you can see where you can check your voter registration status. All of that stuff is really important because this election is going to matter more than it's ever mattered before. Not just because of Scott, but because we have some other down ballot races that are really important. School board races, right? Like we need judicial races. We need to be tapped in on who's on the ballot up and down, not just at the top. But more importantly, when it comes to a state like Mississippi, that depends on about 40% of its budget from the federal government, you need somebody in the federal seat that's going to make sure that money comes home so that the people who live here, the 2.9 million people who live in this state, have access to the resources that they need.
I love that. CJ, did you have anything you wanted to say before we wrap? Thank you, Wakenya.
The only thing that I would say is that look, right now we fighting and traveling around the state to speak to people, voters, voters and prospective voters, to try to set the record straight. And so that's something that we are excited and pleased to be doing in partnership with the groups that we've been working with in order to do that. Our hope is to come to, I think, Central Mississippi, I think Canton at some point, and Gulfport at some point, so that people in that area, in the Gulf Coast area and Pine Belt area and the Central Mississippi areas can speak on the record the same way the Mississippi Delta has, North Mississippi has, Meridian has. And so there's going to be an opportunity to do that. And I think people should take advantage of that opportunity. We'll be in Greenwood upcoming very soon. So if you are in the
On Friday.
Greenwood Friday, right? What can you like? So she give me like.
Friday.
So we'll be in Greenwood Friday. There's an opportunity to pull up there as well. It's gonna be a very special session with some brothers that you and I know very well, Lo. So yeah, that's gonna be taking place as well. But also to again emphasize, get registered to vote. If you're not yet registered, it's August right now, right? My months are getting jumbled up, but you got a few months to get registered, and you have to register a little while in advance to be able to be qualified to vote in an upcoming election. When are the Mississippi? Is it November when we're gonna be voting on this primary, or is it gonna be?
No, this you're in general now. So you'll be voting on November the 3rd. Um Tuesday, November the 3rd. You do
Yes.
have an option of in-person absentee voting. I think it's about a 10-day window, but check with your clerk's office for more information on that. I saw a couple of comments in the chat low around like folks wanting more clarity around it. So this is not just a black people thing, okay? Because I see Kenton talking, okay? This is not just a black people thing. This is a woman thing. This is and I hate this term, people of color thing, right? Like this is for anybody who may not be a cisgender straight white man, okay? I put
Yeah.
it to you straight like that. Like if you have if your name has changed, right? People who are
Married.
LGBTQ, people who are married, people who may come here from other countries, right? They are citizens. They come here and they become citizens, naturalized citizens of this country, their names may change. They might change part of their name, right? They may have longer names. And so making sure that people do their due diligence in checking their voter registration status, no matter what color you are, that matters, right? You talked about, having to get your mama social security benefits. Well, check and make sure your mama's still on the roll because she might be off the roll. So like those are the types of things that you have to become vigilant in. And if you're in Mississippi, the best place to go is to that Secretary of State's website. One thing I will tell you is that the Secretary of State, he believes in the memo and he believes in updating stuff, whether we
Yeah,
need it updated or not. So like
it can
just
be
make sure,
incredibly.
yeah, just go and make sure. Like here's my thing. I don't care who you vote for, as long as you vote. Like you need to use your vote. CJ just pointed to something that was really critical that we haven't talked about on this call, which was following the Louisiana versus Calais decision. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was pretty much gutted, right? So those same safeties and provisions that were and still remain necessary today, because if they did not remain necessary, why are we entering into redistricting sessions outside of our normal census window,
Hmm.
right? Like why are we having to do that? Other than a unlawful power grab is what I call it, right?
Yeah,
And so it does matter that people check their voter registration. It does matter that people show up to these hearings. They just changed the location on the hearing today, as well as moved the date on another one today. And so you have to be vigilant about making sure your voice is heard. Being a part of a representative and participatory democracy is not just about simply casting a vote. It's about showing up every place that your voice matters. It matters where your voice is on record when it comes to redistricting and reapportionment. Redistricting helps not only determine representation, but it also determines resources. So money for schools, roads, bridges, infrastructure, healthcare systems, you name it, we got it, right? Like all of that matters. And for people who live in some of the poorest regions of this state, they are going to be the ones who are going to be most disproportionately impacted by the changes that are happening on Congress Street. And if we don't take it upon ourselves to make sure that we are holding people accountable in this moment and every moment that comes after that, then we have no one to blame for ourselves. So I will not be baited into a conversation around just simply what does this mean for Black people. No, it's something that means something for all of us. And as a Black woman, I will tell you that I do care whether or not there's a bill that is out here that may compromise my ability to make sure that my voice is heard. That's my right as a citizen of this country. So I want to put that on record.
yeah, for sure. No, I think you're absolutely right. There are challenges involved in getting a birth certificate. In order to get the Safe Act, for example, is one of the things that's requiring people to get passports in order to be able to register or show up to the polls and things like that. And it's challenging to get a passport. It requires you to get a birth
Yeah.
certificate, which is also challenging in the state of Mississippi. So,
But it's also called a poll tax. So let's just name the
yeah,
thing,
it's a
right?
poll
Like
tax, right?
democracy is about being able to participate in a free and fair election.
And making it
Keyword being
accessible.
free.
Hmm.
Free and fair. It's accessible, meaning that you should need all of that,
You got to
right?
pay for a birth certificate. You got to pay for a passport.
And in
It
certain
takes
instances,
months
you
at a
gotta pay to
time.
vote.
Right. Right. Like that's a simple, like those things. If those things are directly and intrinsically tied to the vote themselves, then that in and of itself is making you have to be able to pay,
Yeah.
afford to be able to be a voter. And so, we can be obtuse about things,
Hmm.
or we can be real about understanding both the history and the current state of things. I mean, like, those of us who see it understand it. Those who don't want to see it will continue to refuse to see it. And
Hmm.
and I know that they understand that they have a history of not seeing those things and dealing in those things directly themselves. Both they and I know that. So I will say that quite clearly. So if we're gonna be real and have genuine conversations, let's understand and acknowledge our genuine history as a state and our genuine history as individuals. So I'm gonna leave it there. And
Yes. I want to thank you both. Listen,
Hmm.
y'all both have to come back. Clearly, they are enjoying this conversation, but we cannot do it all in one night. On behalf of just Pastor McCarter and Lady McCarter, I just want to thank y'all again for just lending us your expertise and your voice, and just helping us progress forward. It is simply our goal and job to make sure that we are making things better for those coming behind us. One of my favorite poems is Bridge Builder. He did not have to stop to build a bridge, but he chose to build a bridge for those coming after him. And I think that is a great way to end tonight. I will end in prayer. God, we thank you for today. We thank you for life, health, and strength. We thank you for everyone that gathered here tonight. We ask you to empower us to open the hearts of those who heard this conversation. We ask you to cover the Wells family in their time of grief and their time of just trying to find some comfort as they go forward, and all the families that are affected across the country today. There's a lot going on, and we thank you for your love and your kindness and your power for us to be actively pursuing the things that are equally beneficial to all involved. And we thank you in your name. Amen. Thank you,
Amen.
guys. I appreciate you again. To everyone that watched, we hope you got something from this. If nothing else, make sure you got yourself together so you and your house can vote. And we will see y'all in the next one.
Mhm.
Thank you, brother.
Peace.